Today I'm going to be looking at interesting maps of Canada. Recently I watched a similar video to this, but it was about the UK, and I felt like I actually learned a lot about the UK just looking at these interesting maps, and I thought I want to do something similar for Canada, and I found this video. So interested to see what they're like, see if I actually learn anything from these, see if anybody watching learns anything from these as well, or yeah, you can tell me if you find these interesting, if you don't. First one we've got here is, let me see, population. So we can see here persons per square kilometre. As I've learned on previous videos, yeah, the majority of the population of Canada is very close to the border of the USA. We can see that here. We do see some areas like here and here that are very unpopulated. I guess obviously this one is more to do with the Great Lakes and just there not being any land there. Tell me if I should make a video about the Great Lakes as well. I think they're very interesting just due to the sheer size, especially someone like me coming from a small country like Scotland that could probably fit inside one of those lakes. Why is this region or this area so unpopulated? But it's interesting the way it actually just almost cuts it like a right angle there with the populated areas here. And yeah, this is just very heavily populated over on the east here. But the interesting thing you can see from here is just these little pockets of people that are all over here in these very sparsely populated areas. Maybe these are more indigenous people and just, yeah, small communities. But places like this up here on the edge of this place up here, there's just small communities of people. So yeah, tell me if you think that one's interesting. Canada's closest neighbours. We've got Denmark over here. France. Canada's closest neighbour. France over here. I don't think I actually knew that. I think I knew that Canada shares a border with Denmark. I think someone recommended a video about that. Tell me if that's correct or not. That one makes sense. I don't think I learned that the closest neighbours are actually France, especially when America would be so close here. That's very interesting to me as well. Denmark, yeah, I can understand that. Again, having that video recommended, someone mentioned that. Is that the case that Canada shares a border with Denmark? Maybe it's Greenland. I think Denmark, or Greenland, is under the control of Denmark, so maybe it's that. But again, I don't know how many people that are outside of Canada actually know that Canada shares a border with 3 different countries, rather than, I think maybe people would just have the misconception it's the USA. Okay, where the wild things are. Green represents areas where no humans reside. Okay, this is like an inverse map of the first one. Most Canadians live near the US border, leaving most of Canada still left to be inhabited. So yeah, as I mentioned there, this is like an inverse of that first one, and it really shows when you talk about where no humans reside and it's bolded like this with the colour. It's the by far the majority of the country. No humans reside. Just wonder what's going on all over these places. Some of the wildlife that must roam in these areas. Just things that are going about their business. These animals that just are so far away from like human civilization. I think that's like really interesting. And again, due to Canada's sheer size, there's not many countries where this would be the case, especially somewhere like Scotland, where I'm from, where you can drive coast to coast. You can travel from the west to east coast in like a couple of hours, really. Completely the opposite of Canada, of course. Canada winter time zones, the first Sunday in November to the second Sunday in March. Okay, we've got the legislated time boundary. Again, this is very interesting, the time zones. Again, it makes complete sense due to the width of the country, the size of it. When you see that there's how many time zones here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 time zones. It really emphasises how big Canada is. The thing I find it interesting with time zones is areas like this here as well. Like, this is such a wide area that covers the time zone. Like, how did they come to create these time zones? Especially something like this that just cuts out. Like, it's such an interesting shape. Instead of just going straight down, it cuts in here. I mean, if you look at the width here, that's one time zone compared to the width here, that's one time zone. It's quite a big difference. Like, if you drive from here to here, I don't know if even there's land there, but you can cross 3 time zones in quite a small period of time, which is interesting. Actually, never really thought about that. So yeah, tell me what you think about them. Is that interesting to you? Let's see what we've got next. Canada compared to all of Europe. Yeah, this is like an interesting one. So we can see Europe in the background there, and Canada's overlaid. So Canada basically covers all of Europe. When you think of like the diversity within Europe with languages, food, music, whatever, all parts of life due to the borders, and you see that Canada just has one country that just covers all of that. I mean, you can see Scotland in here. Scotland is nothing compared to the full size of Canada. But yeah, the width that goes right from Azerbaijan right across to well past the UK as well, from north to south as well. Huge country. The most popular language that isn't English or French. Okay, this one would be interesting. Got German over here. Tinsho. I guess this one in Inuktitut. So I guess these are more indigenous languages, which is interesting. Okay, I didn't realise German was so widely spoken outside English or French. So we've got basically German and Chinese here. I can understand Chinese because obviously this is on the west coast. It'll be close to Asia. There'll be a lot of immigrants. How did the Germans get over to this side of Canada and populate it so much? Arabic actually. Interesting that Arabic is here. And we've got another couple of indigenous languages, I guess, Innu and Mi'kmaq. Okay. So really outside of the indigenous languages, we've got German, Chinese and Arabic. Tell me if you knew that. Tell me if you know any German speakers. Google autocomplete. Why does Yukon have gold? Does Yukon have gold? Northwest Territories did split. Is that maybe talking about leaving Canada? Tell me more about that. Nunavut have a high birth rate. Do they have a high birth rate? British Columbia have a different family day. Okay, I don't know what that is. It's family day, so I guess you celebrate a family day in Canada. I think that's actually a good thing. I've actually thought about that before. You have like Father's Day, Mother's Day, different things. Celebrate the family unit. That's a good thing to do. Saskatchewan, not change time. So just talking about those time zones there. Alberta have so much oil. Let's check the provinces first. Manitoba, why does it flood? Ontario use milk bags. Quebec want independence. Newfoundland want to separate. Okay, so the eastern side want to get away from Canada. Prince Edward Island have red sand. Nova Scotia have the highest cancer rate. Does Nova Scotia have the highest cancer rate? Is that a true thing? Why would it have the highest cancer rate compared to the rest of Canada? New Brunswick join the Confederation. Bit of history. Vancouver have mild winters. Calgary get Chinooks. Ottawa get earthquakes. Does Ottawa get earthquakes? Montreal have outdoor staircases. And Toronto have streetcars. Okay, tell me if you know the answers to any of those questions. Let's see, the best places to view the Northern Lights. Well, you can see the Northern Lights south in Canada. I would expect it definitely in the north, but I didn't realise you could see the Northern Lights at very southern Ontario. I mean, going down to the Great Lakes and seeing the Northern Lights, that sounds like a fantastic experience. But most provinces got somewhere you can see the Northern Lights. Tell me if you've ever seen them, what it's like. I would definitely love to see that one day. Very beautiful sight. Roads in Canada. Wow, it's like almost like veins just running through the country. This place over here, very good road system by the looks of it, but you see how it is so much infrastructure with regards to road here, but it just kind of tails off as it gets more northern, and obviously these more uninhabited areas have very little roads. That's quite an interesting one as well when you see it all lit up like that. The countries closest in size to each province. Okay, nice. Cameroon is close to Yukon. Colombia is like the Northwest Territories. Nunavut, like Mexico. So Mexico and Nunavut, if you think about the differences in just everything about those two areas, Mexico and Nunavut is like the polar opposites with regards to things like culture, food, just what goes on in the countries. Egypt, British Columbia, Afghanistan and Alberta, Madagascar, Saskatchewan, Nigeria, Ontario. That is mad. That's an interesting one for me when you think about how populated Nigeria is. Like, it was like 200, 300 million people, I think. Maybe even more. And then it's just the same size as Ontario. Wow, that's kind of blown my mind, that one, when you see it like that. Norway is like Newfoundland and Labrador. Again, like somewhere like Newfoundland and Labrador compared to a country like Norway. It's a very interesting comparison. Bosnia, Herzegovina for Nova Scotia, Trinidad and Tobago for Prince Edward Island, Peru for Quebec, and Sierra Leone for New Brunswick. Oh man, these maps are quite cool actually. The most searched relative terms in Canada compared to other provinces. Tickling, hentai, what is this? Asia. Okay, this is for Pornhub. Okay. If you want to look at that, I guess I don't want to get demonetized by talking about that too much. I didn't even know what that was talking about when I seen tickling. I guess that's what each province likes. Maybe I'll go back to that afterwards and check it out. But I guess you've got the ability to pause that and check it out as well. 3D Canada. Okay. Whoa, this is pretty cool. I've never seen Canada like this. So you can actually see how elevated the east of Canada is, all this mountainous region, and how flat the centre is here. A bit more mountainous over here as well. But that's kind of breathtaking when you see it like that. And you can maybe understand a bit more why areas like this would be uninhabited when it's just so mountainous. Tell me if you've seen a map like that before. That's pretty cool. Was this where 80% of us live, where the rest of us live? Okay, yeah. So, I mean, that's even more emphatic when you see how small these like red areas are. So maybe a more realistic showcase of how many people live in each area compared to the real size of Canada. National parks. So this is the national parks and the number of visitors. So yeah, you see Canada is blessed with a huge amount of national parks, some beautiful, beautiful national parks as well. A lot that I'd love to visit one day. Really, the whole country has them east to west, north to south. Again, a lot of good national parks. Tell me your favourite national park. What's the most beautiful? When you see things like this, it gives you a better understanding of the country. I think that's why I enjoyed watching that one about the UK. Really like this one about Canada. Tell me if you have any other interesting maps. I like to see things about like what's the biggest export from each province, or what's the favourite music from each province, things like that. So tell me if you know any more interesting maps. Tell me what you think about this one. What was the most interesting map and all of that for you? Thanks.